Welcome to Snack Break, the perfect podcast to pop on while preparing your cup of tea or ideal snack or beverage. I'm Pentago Blue. You may know me, you probably don't, but this is a brand new show. Actually, I've got brand new pants on for it, so here's how things are going to work. This show is going to be, if you couldn't tell already, fast-paced, fun-packed, and a delivery of internet nonsense, pop culture news, and hopefully interesting conversations. This is a show where it doesn't matter what you're interested in, just as long as you're happy to be a part of something with others, and where we will attempt to cover and include quite as much as we possibly can. So, here's how things are going to work. The twist, if you will. Unlike my last lengthy podcast, this one comes with a rule. Every Snack Break episode has to be under 20 minutes long. As we said, it's the perfect podcast to pop on while preparing your cup of tea, or else I will receive a punishment. I don't know what it is yet. It could be mild, it could be bad, or it could be incredibly cruel. You see, every punishment is going to be picked by the very listeners of this show, meaning that you, yes you, get to invent ways to see me suffer. Hopefully though, we don't need to get to that. Right? Either way, welcome to Snack Break. Coming up on today's show, we'll have Pop Culture News, which is an old feature from my old show. We'll have Ben Goes Musical Musings, the first of sort of a brand new featured duology, and also we're going to be discussing, what's the exact name? The Shed of the Year competition. So sit tight, get that biscuit ready, let's get into it. We begin now with a feature that has made the long and perilous journey from my old podcast to Snack Break. It survived, to quote Loki, the pruning, if you will. So, it is a pleasure to present to you the new and refurbished Pop Culture News. If you don't know how this feature works, it's usually accompanied by a highly energetic theme, and me being highly energetic, it's relatively self-explanatory. I wear an imaginary newsreader outfit and get you up to date with the best, and occasionally worse, in the wonderful world that is entertainment. And we begin today's edition with Joker Folie à Deux, the first trailer in the highly anticipated sequel to the 2018 movie released recently, with Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix both seen in the prison set trailer. The film is supposedly a musical, and in a year where Deadpool and Wolverine is rumored to take Joker's crown as the highest grossing R-rated movie ever, it has a lot to prove. Not one I'm going to be watching, I have to say. I'm not into things that are overly intense, and Joker, from what I've heard, is most definitely intense, but if you're into that type of thing, if you watched the first Joker or are just curious to see how it's going to translate to the musical format, I'm sure you'll be showing up to the cinema in October for this one. I bring you now to a galaxy not so far away, where the first trailer for Star Wars Outlaws has been released. The game, which is set in the period between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, a highly exciting period, if I do say so myself, has already prompted sighs from fans. With I need to get the echo ready. With $130 editions set to be released. In other news from the ever-expanding franchise, it has been confirmed that Mandalorian and Grogu, a rumoured combination of Disney Plus's so-called Mandoverse, will release in cinemas on May 22nd, 2026. So, we're still at least 2 years and a month away from a Star Wars film in cinemas, which, as a devoted Star Wars fan myself, a Star Wars devotee, if you will, is disappointing news. But hey, taking their time with it, Rebel Squadron will be in there somewhere, I'm sure, hopefully. We can only hope. And you never know, Star Wars Outlaws might surprise fans. Star Wars has been quite a good past few years for Star Wars games. Lego Star Wars was very popular. Obviously, Fallen Jedi and all that jazz has done immensely well. But I think there have been a few ups and downs, which might be a reason that this is one of the downs. On to our news now. It has been announced that MCC, Minecraft Championship, will be returning for a 4th season. The highly successful Minecraft competition will return on May 4th. May the 4th be with you, 2024, and will likely feature streamers and content creators such as Green, Tubbo, Solidarity, and many others. And I take this opportunity to say, as so many have before me, and it's a rite of passage, I don't like the word content creators, but we'll shove that to the side for a second. That's something we'll get onto at another time. Additionally, it was also recently announced that MCC will be partnering with Twitch rivals once again, this time for another live show at TwitchCon Rotterdam. If you don't know, MCC, as I mentioned, is, I was going to say probably, but definitely the biggest Minecraft event out there at the moment. It's non-competitive in that players only play for sort of a souvenir-esque coin. There's no money involved, unlike previous competitions such as Minecraft Monday and Minecraft Saturdays and all those. But just it's a collaboration between Smager, dang that's a long name, and Nox Crew and a variety of other amazing people, and it's been going for several years strong by this stage. I believe this is going to be its 5th year, and it's really impressive if you watch it. They've launched a public server, MCC Island, that I myself have played, so you can check that out on my gaming channel if you want to. But I'll be looking forward to the return of that. And last but not least, it has been announced that a cinematic adaptation of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin is in the works at Paramount. The movie, which is based on the 2019 comic miniseries of the same name, will be R-rated and follow the gritty tone of both its source material and the upcoming Last Ronin PlayStation adaptation. This is really interesting news, and although it is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and not Marvel or DC or any of those other big beefy franchises, it could have been expected that R-rated would be the next turn for this series. Obviously, Mutant Mayhem did very well, and the sequel and TV series are on the way. But I'm curious to see how this works out. I'm sure they're going to handle it with a lot of care. The Last Ronin has been really popular with fans, shown obviously by the fact they are doing an adaptation, not only in the cinematic format, but a PlayStation video game. And everybody just seems to be going for this R-rated format at the moment. Marvel are doing it, DC are doing it. Sure, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which a few years ago would have shoved Deadpool away at the mere sight of him, even just for a second in a movie, is now welcoming him as basically the savior, as he calls himself, the savior of the MCU. And it's even rumored that once the Spider-Verse trilogy comes to a close, Sony Pictures Animation will be working on a Venom R-rated movie. So this is obviously going to be a long way off in the future. Who knows if it'll even happen, but I know the fans are going to be really excited for it. And that's you, up to date with the newly refurbished Pop Culture News. Now we move on to a brand new feature, one that I've never done before, and about something that I neglected quite a lot in my old podcast. And if you will, appropriately for a double album, it's a double feature. I present to you, with all my hard work, and I hold it out to you and hope you accept it. Drumroll, please. New features for the new podcast. Bentago's Musical Musings and Bentago's Podcast Perusing. Yes, that's right. Every other episode we are going to be rotating between these two featured, one of which centers around the world of music and all that's going on, whether that be a brand new album release from a big star, such as it is today, or a smaller indie band. We're going to be discussing it in this feature. Then, the other one, Bentago's Podcast Perusings, is pretty self-explanatory. Have a little scroll through the Spotify page, listen to some good old podcasts, and suggest to you some amazing shows, or even just episodes of shows that I believe you should listen to once you finish with this one. But today we open on Bentago's Musical Musings. And what a lovely day it is. There's just something so special about starting a new podcast or a new YouTube channel or whatever. There's a certain sense of trepidation, which you could probably hear in my tumbling vocals, and yet equally just such exciting anticipation. It is just brilliant. So I think in order to serve our part in the world of music, it's only right that we deal with some indie stars, some up and coming, barely known about, success, soon to be immensely successful phenomenon. What? Taylor Swift dropped a new album. Yes, that's right. I tried to resist, but in the first ever Bendigo's Musical Musings on the Snack Break podcast, we are going to be discussing, despite regularly referencing the fact that we will talk about indie stars as well, perhaps the most popular musician alive or potentially ever. I am, of course, talking about Taylor Swift, who, especially since her last album release, Midnight, in 2022, particularly with the song Antihero. You heard it everywhere. It must be exhausting rooting for the antihero. You know it, you potentially love it, or maybe even hate it. But she has, I wouldn't describe it as a meteoric rise to fame, because by the time that album dropped, she was already just incredibly famous. Yet, seems to have just blasted into the stratosphere with her music over the past couple of years and been constantly in circulation in the tabloids, in the news, wherever you look, there is Taylor Swift. And yesterday, I'm recording this on Saturday the 20th of April, yesterday, Friday the 19th of April, was the release of her brand new album, or, as it turned out, double album, The Tortured Poets Department. It's 31 songs long. It's roughly 2.5 hours long, and it's arrived to somewhat mixed reviews. I admittedly, haven't listened to it yet, although the reviews are largely mentioning the fact that this album really has a lot to deal with. I didn't even know this was a double album until I woke up today and listened to a little summary of some of the varying reviews of this album so far. Even apparently her biggest fans, the BBC's music reporter was saying, did not expect this to be a 31 track double album. They said it's a little bit mixed. You know, there's a lot of everything in there, and I'm not going to pass judgment yet. I haven't listened to it. It would be unfair for me to. But everybody, and I mean everybody, is talking about the lyrics that directly refer to her relationships with Joe Alwyn and Matty Healy, who she dated last year. She faced a lot of criticism for dating Matty Healy following some of his previous accusations, and as such, there are lyrics within the album where she talks about her fans and the struggle of sort of constantly being analysed by them and told what she should and shouldn't do in her with her private life and who she dates. So, I'm not here in this feature to pass judgment, and perhaps I will in future, and I promise that later editions will be a bit more comprehensive. But the biggest pop star, or the biggest musical star in the world, has just dropped a brand new 31 track, 2.5 hour long album, and I'm starting a brand new podcast in which I'm regularly going to be discussing the shifting landscape of the musical world. How could I not mention it? Now, to round off today's episode, we move on to something that quite nicely summarizes the atmosphere of this show. As the episodes rack up gradually, surely but slowly, you'll hopefully learn about me that at times I often take a bit of an interest in things that are considered a little bit peculiar, a bit out there, somewhat bizarre, people might say. Today, I offer you one of those such things. Shed of the Year competition. This is an annual shed making competition run by Q Pruno and was last year won by Archie Proudfoot, a London-based sign painter and independent artist. It received over 200 entries, and there's a range of categories, the entries to which are quite simply striking. They range from underground bunkers. In 2017, the competition opened to non-sheds for the first time. and featured an entrant and, I believe, victory for Colin Furze, the YouTuber who built that amazingly detailed and functional underground bunker. It's got sprawling modern-day hobbit holes and even your simple wooden tool house. This is just so impressive, and although I realize for my first wacky pick from the internet, I've chosen something that is notably visual, I just urge you to pause your day very briefly while you're on your snack break, pop out your phone, you're probably already listening to this podcast on it, and quickly Google Shed of the Year competition. It's been covered by newspapers such as Daily Mail, House and Garden, House Beautiful, and even picked up by BBC News after it, as I mentioned earlier, included non-sheds for the first time in 2017. These also feature tree houses. One year, a man's 12-year-old daughter gave her £500 in savings, and 12-year-old Elsie, and with which he constructed a mushroom-shaped house. They're dotted everywhere. I believe you can be anywhere in the UK. I don't know the exact rules. You might even be able to enter from outside of the UK, and it is truly just a phenomenal rabbit hole to go down if you're maybe just not feeling the motivation to do anything. You've got a little bit of free time on your hands. Need something, just pick up your pace in the middle of the podcast, but in the middle of the day. I would highly recommend you quickly Google Share of the Year competition and delight in the many wonders of this, quite frankly, amazing competition. That's it for the very first episode of Snack Break Podcast. The perfect podcast to pop on while preparing your cup of tea. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a like or even a comment on YouTube. I believe you can use a 5-star rating system on Spotify, and you can email us at hwsnackbreakpodcast@gmail.com, all lowercase. The podcast will make its return for the difficult second episode next week, in which we'll be discussing more pop culture news. We'll have our first edition of Bendigo's podcast perusings, and we'll be informing you of the best Minecraft SMPs to watch on YouTube right now. For now, though, I've been Bendigo Blue. It's been a Huncap Hour production. The Snack Break Podcast YouTube channel is part of the Team Blaze collection of channels. Thank you very much for listening. See you soon. Stay safe. Bye. Now get back to work.